Hey there my wedding planning friends, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for clicking on my picture. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe to get weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice. Today, we're going to talk about the things that your guests really don't care about at your wedding. When couples are planning their weddings, I feel like they spend so much time thinking about obviously what they want at their wedding, what's going to make them happy, but also what's going to make their guests happy and make sure that they are having a good time as well. And there's a few things that couples spend time on that they think their guests will appreciate or enjoy that really, the truth is, they don't really notice or they don't really care. So I'm going to save you some time, I'm going to save you some money, and these are 6 things that your guests really don't care about at your wedding. Number 1, sad to say it, but it's your invitations. If you're spending a lot of time and a lot of money on your wedding stationery and your invitations, hiring somebody to do professional calligraphy on your envelopes or on your cards or hand paint them, while these are really beautiful and wonderful mementos to have for your wedding and also to use in your flat lay photos and detailed photos and stuff like that, don't do it because you think your guests are gonna like it. If you're trying to save as much money as possible on your wedding, this is one item to definitely cut back on, because chances are you're going to spend all this time on your wedding invitations, you're going to spend all the money and the postage and everything that goes into it, you're going to send them out to your guests, they're going to look at it, maybe it'll go in the fridge for a little while, and then guess where it's going to go? It's going to go into the garbage. And I even hate throwing away wedding invitations. I have a box where I keep all of them for my clients because that's just what I do. Unfortunately, your guests are not going to do the same thing. So if you're looking for ways to save money on your wedding or cut certain things back or slash prices somewhere, start here. On a similar topic of stationery and paper goods, wedding programs. This is something that I used to do with a lot of couples, is to print out an actual little wedding program that guests can see who's in your bridal party, kind of an order of events, anyone that's doing any musical performances or doing any readings or anything like that. They would typically be listed in some sort of program. Again, these unfortunately just end up in the garbage, and that's just such a big waste of paper, and it's not really something that guests care that much about. Sure, it's nice to have, and it's one of those little details that are really nice to incorporate into your wedding and to personalize your wedding and have another little element that has maybe your photo on it or some personal information. And maybe this is good for a smaller guest count, but if you have over 150 guests, don't worry about a program. It's just one of those things that your guests really don't care that much about. 3 is escort cards. When I say escort cards, that is, in the most simplest form, it's like a table tent in front of your place setting where that would have your name on it so that you know where to sit. Typically it has some sort of little design or color on it to kind of tie in your wedding theme. Some people will go very creative and out of the box when creating place settings and escort cards, which I love. I love all those little details. However, your guests don't care about them. So again, if you're looking for a place to cut back to save money, no one's gonna leave your wedding and be like, man, that food was good, that cake was so good, but man, those escort cards. Truth is, they don't really care, and they may not even notice. The only time escort cards are actually necessary is when you have a fully assigned seating chart, where that is to say each individual seat is reserved and not just a table, like you're assigned to a table and then you can sit anywhere at that table. The only time that's really necessary, unless you have a lot of people that you're trying to keep away from each other, is when you're having a fully plated meal, because your caterers will need to know where each individual person is sitting based on what they ordered for their food for their meal. Other than that, don't even mess with escort cards. It's extra details that you can save money on and use elsewhere. Your guest book. This is another one that can be kind of hit or miss. I have seen a lot of really creative ways to incorporate a guest book where it's not an actual book. A friend of mine actually had this really cool handmade wooden outline of the state of Montana that everyone signed on the inside, and so that was something that they were going to take home with them and hang up as a piece of art in their house that they could enjoy after the wedding. And that's something that's really cool. And so if you can incorporate that into it somehow, or give something that your guests want to see, a wedding guest book, an actual physical book, is something that I have seen rarely gets utilized the way that it should. people don't realize it's there, or they know it's there and they're like, oh, I'll sign it later, or they don't even realize that they should sign it. People just don't really care that much about the guest book. And you have to remember the guest book is really for you. It's not for your guests. So however you want to incorporate that into your wedding, if whether it's a piece of art that you can use in your house once the wedding is over, or if you really want a book that's going to have a bunch of little notes and stuff like that in from your guests, just remember this is for you. So pick out whatever speaks to you, and don't try so hard or spend a lot of money on something that you think your guests will be impressed by. 5 is something that I have seen go both ways for sure, and recently I feel like a lot of couples are opting out of the bouquet and the garter toss. While this can be super fun and super entertaining, especially the garter toss depending on the couple, a lot of couples are really embarrassed to do this, and they're trying to limit the time that they are spending in the spotlight, and that's totally fine. The truth is your guests really won't miss these items. Again, there's always the exception, and it really depends on you as a couple and who your crowd is, whether you want to incorporate these 2 activities into your wedding or not. But if you don't want to do them, it's not a big deal if you don't have to. People aren't expecting you to throw your bouquet or expecting you to do the garter toss. A lot of people, depending on your age too, for me, when I'm attending a wedding, I tend to be one of the very few people that would be the single lady on the dance floor trying to catch this bouquet. And a lot of people are probably in the same boat as me, or they don't really want that status to be called out over your entire guest count and really have that spotlight shine on me. So it's okay if you don't want to do a bouquet toss or a garter toss. You can just scratch that off the list. Lastly, this is something that I probably get questions on the most when it comes to do I need it, do I not? And that is guest favors. Past guest favors were something that you would have seen at every single wedding, probably in the form of little M&Ms or Hershey Kisses or mints on your place setting. I feel like that was kind of the norm for a little while there, and this is a very traditional tradition. Whereas now, modern day weddings, most of them don't have guest favors. That's something that we're seeing really go away, and really you're creating more of an experience for your guests and really spending more time and money on the food, on the music, on the whole atmosphere and the experience for your guests rather than the guest favors. Favors are another one of those things where I have seen a couple spend so much time on really personalizing these favors to give out to their guests, and so many of them get left behind at the end of the night. It might be something that they're excited about when they first sit down, but once the dance floor's going and they're out getting their groove on and not really paying attention to what's on the tables anymore, chances are they're going to forget that ever existed, and they're going to forget to take it with them at the end of the night, and then you're left with all of these favors that you spent all this time and all this money on. And it's one of those things that isn't really expected anymore, so don't feel like you have to do wedding favors. So there you have it. There are 6 items that your guests really don't care that much about. That isn't to say that you shouldn't do all 6 of these items. That's just if you're looking to cut back on your budget and looking to save time on your wedding planning and wondering if you need to incorporate all of these things into your wedding and wondering what your guests actually care about. These are just 6 items that you can easily toss out because they likely won't be missed. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe to get more videos on wedding planning tips and advice, and we'll see you next time.